So this is coming from Bleeding Cool. DC Comics will not support AI-generated storytelling or art, says Jim Lee. DC Comics will not support AI-generated storytelling or artwork. There's a transcript. It was in a video. Summary says, summary which is done by AI, I'm sure. Summary declares DC Comics will not support AI-generated storytelling or artwork now or in the future, as long as he's there. He's not always going to be there, though. And again, we'll talk about the sale, the potential sale of breaking news of Warner Brothers, and I think that's going to affect this for sure, because I think they'll probably take Jim Lee out of there, if I had to guess. Lee emphasized the irreplaceable value of human creativity, effort, and authenticity in comic book creation. He highlights the importance of retailers and comic shops as the core of the DC fan community. Well, good luck with that, because a lot of people, and we did a video the other day, a lot of retailers who've been doing this for decades are noping out, and nobody's replacing them because it doesn't make money. Owning a comic shop is a losing proposition unless you're selling Magic cards, Pokemon cards. You know, Funko Pops are already on their way out. Funko's not doing well. And the one shop we were talking about in Ohio, the guy tried to find a buyer and he couldn't, because it doesn't make any money. Looking ahead to DC's 100th anniversary, Lee sees challenges like AI as opportunities for reinvention. So this is what he said. Oh my God, guys, he just goes on and on. Okay, here we go. Here's where he gets to the part about the AI. They said, when I was a kid in the 70s, we were told there were swarms of killer bees. They're coming up from South America to take over and ravage the world. Obviously, that didn't happen, but something I spent a lot of sleepless nights on. And then we were told Japan's booming miracle economy would overwhelm and crush all their rivals. Well, that kind of did happen. That did not happen. Then it was Y2K, then NFTs, and now it's AI. History has a way of humbling predictions. The future rarely turns out the way the headlines warn us it will. But let me make one prediction I know I can stand by today. DC Comics will not support AI-generated storytelling or artwork. Not now, not ever, as long as I am in charge. Then we're going to talk about Warner Brothers, because I don't know if he's going to be in charge that long if Warner Brothers gets sold. So, you know, for the 2 months or whatever he's there, because what we do and why we do it is rooted in our humanity. It's that fragile, beautiful connection between imagination and emotion that fuels our media, the stuff that makes our universes come alive. It's the imperfect mind, the creative risk, the hand-drawn gesture that no algorithm can replicate. And when I draw, I make mistakes, a lot of them. But that's the point. The smudge, the rough line, the hesitation, that's me in the work. That's my journey. That's what makes it come alive. That's the product of true effort, of inspiration and perspiration. Fans know this. They sense this. They can feel when something was made with care, when it cost the artist time, energy, heart, and effort. Fans, maybe. Corporations want profit. And if you can do a comic page in 2 hours versus 12 hours, and it's going to save them money, I'm just saying, you can have the best of intentions, but it doesn't mean that it's going to play out that way, right? Especially if the Ellisons get a hold of Skydance, because they're going to be looking to maximize profit. What's interesting, though, is if they buy it, they don't know what's going to happen to David Zaslav, but it's probably a good thing he gets gone. I'm going to be honest. So, David Ellison's Warner Brothers bid takes shape. No clear role for Zaslav. Exclusive. This is coming from Deadline. With new contracts for Warner Brothers Motion Pictures chairs Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi. They thought they were going to get gone. Remember that? They thought these guys were going to get fired. But, you know, Minecraft did really well, and they had some other hits, so they get to stay, right? David Zaslav run Warner Brothers Discovery is poised for a purchase by David Ellison and Paramount. And remember, Ellison, Oracle, they're all into tech. They bought Paramount. They gutted Paramount. They got rid of a lot of people. They brought Barry Weiss in to run CBS News. I can almost guarantee you there will be changes at DC Comics because the business model does not make sense. So Jim Lee can talk about how we're not going to do AI. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. But, you know, these guys might say otherwise. I'm just saying. Coming off a $4 billion global box office year to date, DeLuca and Abdi are clearly among Warner Brothers' crown jewels and major assets for the Ellisons, which is more than you can say for Zaslav. With the duo re-upped, it's akin to Ellison buying a house and discovering a Warhol painting hanging out back. Sources at both studios tell us that while no formal offer has yet been sent from P-Sky, Paramount, Skydance, I guess, to Warner Brothers, The Jeff Shell and Jerry Cardinell advised Ellison is just biding his time before making a bid for another iconic studio. It's unclear how far informal pitches and discussions between the parties have evolved. And people are like, oh, they're not going to allow it because, you know, the FCC is not going to allow it, whatever. I'm like, he's an Ellison. His dad's BFFs with Trump. You don't think they would fast track this thing if he wanted to buy it? Oh, they absolutely would. They absolutely would. And then we're going to be down to like 4 or 5 Hollywood studios that control everything. But the reality is that these studios can't stand on their own anymore. And they need a tech company, you know, somebody with tech experience to prop them up, because that is the way of the world. But I guarantee you, if they get bought by Skydance, they're going to lean into AI because everybody else is leaning into AI. Ellison and his father, Larry Ellison, the second richest man in the world, depending on what time of day it is, don't want to see a repeat of the prolonged, painful saga that marked Skydance's $8 billion acquisition of Paramount. They don't want to step on landmines or find any surprises at the debt-heavy Warner Brothers. And they don't currently see a role for Zaslav in the newly merged mega studio. Yeah, why would he come along for the ride? He came from Discovery. He frankly fucked up Warner Brothers. I actually had some hope for him. I thought he would do okay because he was trimming a lot of stuff that needed to be cut, and then he just started cutting really, really deep. It was like, dude, you're getting rid of Looney Tunes. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? To be honest, studio sources tell us it would be very unlikely that Zaz would want to hang around once the sale is complete, and tech guys like Larry Ellison want a clean sheet with no surprises. At most right now, Zaz could be looking at an offer of a board seat and perhaps a strategic advisor position. He can sweep the floors. When contacted by Deadline today, reps for Paramount and Warner Brothers had no comment for any potential deal. Word around town is that Zaslav, enjoying his role as the head of Warner Brothers, was jockeying for some sort of Grand Poobah type of position in any Warner Brothers acquisition. Hence the reason for why he's been trying to drum up bidders for the conglomerate other than Paramount, including Netflix. Netflix is not interested, to the best of my knowledge. They're not interested. However, analysts like Richard Greenfeld at Lightshed Partners have their doubts as to whether Netflix wants to be in the running. Yeah, I don't think so. They're not going to spend 75 to 100 billion to acquire Warner Brothers, because actually what's going to happen is Warner Brothers and Paramount's going to put their stuff on Netflix anyway, and they don't have to pay anything. We'll just give you some royalties or however the hell it works, right? Netflix has no interest in owning linear cable networks. It could wait until the studio and HBO Max split up, but HBO is still tied to the legacy multi-channel ecosystem. What else they got here? Blah, 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 driving subscriber growth. That means they probably would merge Paramount Plus and Warner Brothers and all that stuff, which is fine because, you know, those platforms alone don't have a whole lot, right? So the rationale for Peace Guy to move is as much political as business, meaning standard analytical frameworks, probably less useful than normal. Well, here's, okay, what? So political. So they're going to buy it, I think, probably in part for the news, for like CNN, but they're talking about how Ellison's going to be involved in TikTok too. Ellison's going to wind up owning everything before it's all said and done. Like, he's going to wind up being like the freaking, I don't know, Bill Gates of media. And he's friends with Trump. So there's going to be a lot of people screaming. There's going to be a lot of people very, very upset about it. It said there's a shadow bid. Okay. So it said question mark stock price. The shadow bid has already inflated Warner Brothers shares, kind of almost doubled. We don't love the risk reward here, given the potential for Warner Brothers shares to quickly round trip to $11 to $12 if the bid doesn't materialize. I think it's going to happen. There's been a lot of talk about it, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And it totally makes sense, because where's Warner Brothers going to go? They're taking on water. They're selling everything that isn't nailed down. Skydance has money. The Ellisons have money. Then they would have all this IP that they could strip mine and probably use AI for. Let's be honest, right? So, yeah, we'll just grab this comment here. Fear of FEMA says corpos don't care about legacy. They can't make immediate money off of it. They change their quarterly numbers. To change their quarterly numbers, it means nothing to them. That's true. That's what I'm saying. Like Jim Lee can make a big proclamation that DC Comics, as long as he's there, is not going to use AI. But I don't think it's going to last. I think, again, if they get sold, actually what I could see happening if they get sold is them just outsourcing DC Comics. I think eventually and I've talked about this before, there's going to come a day where it doesn't make sense for them to have their own in-house comic book publisher to publish periodical comics for a dwindling number of comic shops and middle-aged guys who are going to pay $5 to $6 an issue. It just doesn't make sense. It does make sense. So eventually what they'll do is they'll say, hey, boom, do you want to make DC Comics? You want to take the risk? Okay, fine. You do like, 10, 12 books a month. And IDW was going to do that with the Disney books, but they dropped the ball. And Disney's like, yeah, we can't trust you. We can't trust you guys with our stuff. Star Wars, we can't trust you guys with our stuff. So they took it back. But no, I could totally see it happening in the not too distant future that Jim Lee gets gone.